The summer I grew the most beautiful tomato plant of my life, I did not harvest a single tomato from it. The plant was tall, dark green, extraordinary looking. My neighbor stopped at the fence and asked me what variety it was. I had fertilized it faithfully every 2 weeks all season long with a product I bought at the garden center because the label promised vigorous growth and high yields. The plant delivered on the first half of that promise completely. It grew and pushed out leaf after leaf and branch after branch until it was the kind of plant that made you feel like you were doing everything right. The tomatoes never came. I got flowers, I watched them open, and then I watched them drop to the ground one after another without setting a single fruit. By August, I understood what had gone wrong. By September, I'd cut the whole thing down. 30 years of growing tomatoes, and I still remember exactly how that felt. The 5 mistakes I am going to share with you today are the ones I see costing real gardeners real harvests every single summer. The biology behind them is not complicated once it is explained properly. But nobody explains it properly, and so the cycle continues. These are not rare or exotic problems. They are happening in gardens all across this country right now, in raised beds, in containers, in backyard plots, in every climate and every zone. Some of them look like disease. Some of them look like bad luck. None of them are. If you are new here, welcome to the Gardening Grandma. I have been gardening for over 30 years, and every week I share what I have learned the hard way so that you do not have to. Hit that subscribe button right now so you do not miss a single video. Now, let us get into the list. Mistake 1. Watering inconsistently, or from overhead. I know a gardener who spent 3 summers treating her tomatoes for disease. Every time she saw cracked fruit or a tomato with a sunken black bottom, she went back to the garden center and bought another spray. Nothing worked because the problem was never a disease at all. Here is what most gardeners never discover until the damage is already done. Cracked tomatoes and blossom end rot are both caused by the same thing: inconsistent watering. When soil swings from bone dry to completely saturated, the cells inside your developing tomatoes respond to the sudden flood of moisture by swelling rapidly, far faster than the skin can accommodate. The skin tears. That is a cracked tomato. It is pure physics, not a pest, not a pathogen. Blossom end rot looks different. That sunken, dark, leathery patch on the bottom of the fruit. But it comes from the same root cause. Tomatoes need calcium to develop properly, and calcium moves through the plant on a steady, consistent flow of water. When moisture levels lurch back and forth, that flow is disrupted. The calcium is in the soil. The plant simply cannot move it efficiently to the developing fruit. You can buy calcium sprays. You can fold calcium into your fertilizer. You can add lime to your soil. And if you are still watering inconsistently, none of it will matter. The second part of this mistake is overhead watering. Every drop that lands on a tomato leaf is a potential disease event. Wet foliage in warm weather is exactly the environment that early blight and septoria leaf spot need to take hold. Water also splashes off the soil surface and carries pathogens directly up to your lowest leaves. One of the primary ways early blight gets started in a home garden. Water deeply at the base of the plant, never from above. Aim for 1 to 2 inches per week. Apply 2 to 4 inches of mulch, straw, wood chips, shredded leaves around the base of every plant to buffer the soil against moisture swings. Water in the morning so that any incidental moisture has the full warmth of the day to evaporate. My rule is simple. Consistent, deep, ground-level watering prevents more tomato problems than any spray you will ever buy. Mistake 2. Over-fertilizing with nitrogen. The summer I described in my opening, Wars the Magnificent Plant with No Tomatoes, that was a nitrogen problem. I had been feeding it exactly the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time, and the plant did exactly what nitrogen told it to do. It grew. Here is what most gardeners never discover until the damage is already done. Nitrogen is the nutrient responsible for vegetative growth. Stems, leaves, overall plant structure. Tomatoes need it early when they are building the framework that will eventually support a heavy fruit load. But nitrogen is not what triggers flowering and fruit set. That work belongs to phosphorus and potassium. When you keep feeding a tomato plant a high nitrogen fertilizer after flowering begins, you are telling the plant to keep building. It listens. It produces more foliage, more branches, more growth, and it deprioritizes the one thing you actually want it to do. There is also a direct connection between excess nitrogen and blossom end rot. High concentrations of ammonium, the form of nitrogen in most synthetic fertilizers, compete with calcium for uptake at the root level. The plant absorbs less calcium even when calcium is freely available in the soil. We already know what happens from there. In the first few weeks after transplanting, a balanced fertilizer in the range of 10 to 10 to 10 supports establishment and early growth. Once your plants show their first flower clusters, shift to a formula higher in phosphorus and potassium and lower in nitrogen. A tomato-specific product like Espoma Tomato Tone works well at this stage. Apply lightly every 2 to 3 weeks rather than heavily once a month. My rule is simple. Watch for your first flower clusters, make the shift in your fertilizer, and do not let a lush green plant convince you that more nitrogen is ever better. I want to stop here for just a moment. Drop your U.S. state or your hardiness zone in the comments right now. I read every single one, and it helps me build content that is actually relevant to where you are growing. And if you are not yet subscribed, now is a very good time. Mistake number 3 has destroyed entire garden beds in a single season without the gardener ever understanding why. Mistake 3, planting too closely or near a black walnut tree. Spacing sounds like a minor logistical detail. It is not. Tomatoes planted too closely together create a dense, overlapping canopy that traps moisture and blocks airflow. That combination is exactly the environment that fungal diseases exploit. Early blight, septoria leaf spot, gray mold, they all need the same thing: wet, stagnant air in close contact with foliage. An overcrowded planting does not create those conditions once in a while. It creates them persistently, every morning when dew settles and every evening when temperatures drop. No spray program fully compensates for that. For smaller, determinate varieties, 18 inches between plants is the minimum. For large, indeterminate varieties like Brandywine or San Marzano, you want 24 to 36 inches with rows at least 4 feet apart. Here is what most gardeners never discover until the damage is already done. There is a second part to this mistake that catches people completely off guard. If you have a black walnut tree anywhere on your property, you need to know about juglone. Black walnut trees release a toxic compound from their roots, leaves, hulls, and decomposing wood. It leaches into the soil in every direction. The toxic zone extends roughly 1.5 times the tree's height, so a mature 60-foot black walnut can contaminate soil 90 feet from its trunk in every direction. It persists in the soil for years, even after the tree is removed. Tomatoes are among the most sensitive plants in existence to this toxin. The condition is called walnut wilt, and it does not look like drought stress or disease. The plant grows normally and then simply collapses. Wilting comes on quickly, within days, and it does not respond to watering because the water supply is not the problem. There is nothing you can do once symptoms appear. My rule is simple. Give your tomatoes real space between plants and never put them anywhere near a black walnut. Not across a fence if the roots extend to your side, not in soil that was under that canopy last season. Mistake 4. Pruning the wrong variety or pruning a wet plant. The advice to remove suckers from tomatoes is some of the most confidently given and most consistently wrong advice in home gardening. Not because sucker removal is always wrong. It is correct for certain plants under certain conditions. But applied without one critical distinction, it will cost you a significant portion of your harvest. Here is what most gardeners never discover until the damage is already done. Tomatoes fall into two fundamentally different growth types, and the pruning strategy that benefits one directly harms the other. Indeterminate varieties, Brandywine, Cherokee Purple, Sweet 100, San Marzano, are genetically programmed to keep growing and keep producing fruit all season long until frost. For these, sucker removal is appropriate. It keeps the plant manageable, improves airflow, and focuses energy into fewer, larger fruit clusters. Determinate varieties, Roma, Celebrity, Bush Early Girl, are programmed to reach a set height, produce a concentrated flush of fruit, and stop. Their suckers are not diversions of energy. They are, in many cases, the primary fruiting branches the plant was built to develop. Remove them and you reduce your yield directly. The plant tag almost always tells you which type you have. Look for D or I before you ever pick up your pruners. The second part of this mistake is when you prune. Every cut on a tomato plant is an open wound. Pruning a wet plant and before the morning dew has evaporated, after rain, on a humid, foggy day, turns that wound into a direct infection route for early blight and bacterial disease. Always prune on a dry day in the late morning or early afternoon with clean, sanitized tools. When removing suckers by hand, pinch them when they are small, under 2 to 3 inches, so the wound stays minimal. My rule is simple. Know your variety before you prune and never cut a tomato plant when it is wet. Mistake 5, installing support too late or using the wrong kind. Every year, people put transplants in the ground and tell themselves they will set up the cages or stakes next weekend. Every year, they come back to find plants sprawled across the ground, snapped stems and fruit lying in the dirt, being eaten by slugs. Here is what most gardeners never discover until the damage is already done. A snapped stem is not recoverable. That branch is done. Whatever fruit was on it is lost. And fruit and foliage resting on damp soil becomes an immediate infection site for blight and gray mold, and an open invitation for every soil-dwelling pest in your garden. Support needs to go in at the exact moment you plant, while the soil is still loose and the roots have not spread through the surrounding area. Driving a stake into the ground next to an established tomato means driving it through the root system. That damage stresses the plant at exactly the moment it should be channeling everything into growth and fruit. The second part of this mistake is using the wrong support for the variety. The standard cone cage sold at most garden centers is appropriate for small determinate varieties. Put one around a Brandywine or a mortgage lifter, and it will tip over by August under the combined weight of the plant and the fruit. For large, indeterminate varieties, build a cage from concrete reinforcing wire, 16 gauge, 6-inch square mesh, about 5 feet tall, formed into a cylinder and staked firmly to the ground. It will last for decades and hold anything you grow. Whatever system you use, install it at planting, match it to the mature size of the variety, and check your ties weekly through the season. My rule is simple. The best time to support a tomato plant is the day you put it in the ground. The second best time is right now. 5 mistakes: inconsistent watering, nitrogen at the wrong time, wrong spacing or toxic soil, pruning the wrong variety on a wet day, and support that came too late or was not built for the plant. None of them are mysterious. All of them are preventable. And every single one of them is fixable this season if you know what to look for. What you do not know is what costs you the harvest. And now you know. If this video helped you, leave a comment and tell me which of these 5 you have made, and yet, because most of us have made at least 2 of them, and I am no exception. I read every single comment. And if someone in your life is fighting their tomatoes summer after summer, send them this video right now. That single link could save them years of frustration. Subscribe if you have not already. New video every single week, and there is so much more I want to share with you. Until next time, happy gardening. Take care of yourselves and take care of those beautiful gardens of yours.